Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a good group of people in here. Thank you so much for taking your time today to join us for the Automox Patch Tuesday webinar. Couple housekeeping items real quick. You are all muted, and we will do a live Q&A at the end of the demo. If you have any questions throughout, feel free to ask them as we go through. Welcome to Automating Every Patch Tuesday presentation live demo and Q&A. It is August 14th, 2019. My name is Richard Melick. I'm the Senior Technical Product Marketing Manager, also owner of the longest title at Automox. I don't know if that's something I need to be proud of. Joining me to the right, my proverbial right, is Adam Whitman. Adam Whitman, say hello to the people.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Glad to be here.
Adam, what is it that you do for us?
Yeah, so as Richard was saying, I'm a senior sales engineer, and I'm here to support our sales and marketing team with anything around the product that has to do with the technical discussion or helping our users and prospects understand what the technology is all about and how to use it in their environment.
Awesome.
So that's my MO here at Automox.
Awesome. He is also a major advocate for a great hair product and amazingly white teeth. We appreciate him bringing some good looks in here because, as you can see, him compared to me, I look like I was run over by a train. I have to dress in a suit to look nice. Adam just wakes up. So,
Rich, I appreciate how good you are with Photoshop. I really appreciate
it. It took a lot there. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, today's agenda, we're going to be talking about some really big ones that came out recently. Twilight Zone. Guess what? BlueKeep is back. Well, BlueKeep's brother. On top of that, Intel has a few bugs. Big news, Adobe has released a patch. I don't know if you've heard about this company. Apparently they do patch management very well. Valve patches Steam, or did they? And then finally, Adam's going to be doing a demo on reg value changes for CVE vulnerabilities. So I'll let him go into the more technical side of that when we get to that point. We're going to do a poll real quick though. Please take a few minutes and answer what is your realistic timeline to patch critical vulnerabilities. We've asked in the past what you do, but what is it that you would like to do? What is realistic for you? So please take a few minutes, answer that for us, and we will go from there. What is your realistic timeline to patch critical vulnerabilities? 30% of you said 0 to 48 hours. You know what? That is really good news. And I'm going to talk about why this matters, and why this question matters. 3 to 5 days, still really good. 6 to 10 days, I get it. You've got to do the testing. Same with 11, 20 days. It's larger scale testing, larger scale environments. You're probably doing slowed rollout. 30 plus days. Let's talk. Let's, we'd like to change that. If we can get you from 30 plus days down to 11 to 20 days, or even to 6 to 10 days, that would be amazing. Maybe change your answer by next month. Otherwise, we will do that. So why does this matter? A recent report came out from Tenable talking about vulnerabilities in the space. And they're sharing that on average, attackers have a 7-day advantage ahead of a patch being deployed to get into your environment. So Patch Tuesday was Tuesday, of course, 2 days ago. 7 days from that point, for the next week, they are able to get into your environment. Well, not able to, but that's when they're going to be using those vulnerabilities to get in. That's their prime spot. So when we see 0 to 48 hours or 3 to 5 days, that's great. Kevin, you bring up a really good point, though. It does depend. If Microsoft, usually within days, non-OS, a bit longer, of course, you're looking at the critical infrastructure. We're looking at the holistic side, because as long as something is a vulnerability, we do believe it should be patched to make you a smaller target. That is our ultimate goal here at Automox. Get ahead of the curve. So appreciate everybody for joining in on that. Let's go ahead and get started into what's been going on. Twilight Zone, BlueKeep's brother. Now it's been kind of talked about as DejaBlue from threat researchers. There were 96 security updates to Windows. 29 of them were critical, 64 important. Now, what's really scary about this is that 2 of the exploits towards the Windows environment being Windows 7 on up, this includes server, They are BlueKeep style. Now, what gets even scarier about this is that the threat researchers that have been playing around with this, the white hat hackers that have been playing around with this, are saying that this is easier to implement and take advantage of than BlueKeep. That's worrisome. That should be worrisome to us all, because BlueKeep took about a week for them to build out proof of concept, but with DejaBlue, they were able to do it within 48 hours. That is really scary. For August, Microsoft has released the 96. While all security fixes should be taken seriously, there are 4 remote code vulnerabilities, RCEs, that should be fixed within this month as they are deemed critical. We have CVE 2019-1181, 1182, 1222, and 1226. Now, 1181 and 1182 are the ones that are DejaBlue. Simon Pope, Director of Incident Response from Microsoft, he's the one that posts up the blogs typically every Patch Tuesday. He said, it is important that affected systems are patched as quickly as possible because of the elevated risk associated with wormable vulnerabilities like these. And downloads for these can be found within the Microsoft Security Update Guide. We were asked earlier in the chat window if this is available. Yes, they are available in Automox. Please log into the Automox console and you should see those. Now, these patches are impacting the opposite spectrum of BlueKeep. Here's a list of it. Windows 7 Service Pack 1 on up, Windows Server 2008 R2 Service Pack 1, Windows Server 2012, Windows 8.1, Windows Server 2012 R2, and all supported Windows 10 versions, including Windows 10 Server. Now the exploits have been put to use, but researchers are reporting that because it is easier, they are considering this more dangerous than BlueKeep. There are also 25 critically rated vulnerabilities to be aware of this month. Multiple RCEs for Hyper-V, DHCP client, Microsoft's graphic component, and others are all getting fixed this month. And Chakra scripting engine is getting fixed for RCEs, as well as memory corruption vulnerabilities. To be honest, we were not expecting as big of a release on this one. Major props over to Windows, though, or Microsoft. They were the ones that discovered all these. So it was not a threat researcher that discovered it. It was Microsoft themselves, and they were able to implement a patch very quickly. They do not want another WannaCry type situation. So please, please, please make yourself a smaller target and patch. Now, Intel is in the news lately. Come out and say it. All Intel processors from 2012 to today are impacted by these bugs. As part of this round of patches, Intel is addressing 3 high severity flaws and 5 medium severity bugs. Security researchers from Bitdefender, major props over to that house, have also reported discovering a vulnerability in virtually all Intel processors from 2012, which could allow attackers to circumvent security, including your EPP, and gain access to a system's protected kernel memory. Now, most EPPs are sitting down there at the kernel, that's where they're protecting, but if they are able to get through it and get around it, that puts it at risk. From there, malicious actors can retrieve sensitive data, such as credentials and private conversations. Now, Intel is warning of a high severity vulnerability existing in its software that identifies the spectrum, the specification of Intel processors in Windows systems. They are admitting the flaw could have an array of malicious impacts on affected systems, such as opening systems up to information disclosure and denial of service attacks. Quote from Intel, Intel has released security updates to address vulnerabilities in multiple products. An attacker could exploit some of these vulnerabilities to gain an escalation of privileges on previously infected machines. According to reports, though, the vulnerability affects all Intel processors which support SWAG-GS system calls, a function which allows the processor to swap between the kernel mode and user mode memory rings. This reminds me a lot of Zombie Load from a few months back that Mac had a patch against. Bitdefender is suggesting implementing Microsoft July security updates, so go back to last month if you have not done it. If you have not already, it contains a fix which should mitigate the risk of attack. While replacing the vulnerable CPUs would be the best course of action, that doesn't appear to be an option right now. So for the time being, please, 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 users and admins should take advantage of the patches available from Microsoft and Intel to get their systems up to date. Oh, Adobe. I know if you've attended this in the past couple of months, normally I put the logos up of all the Adobe products that need to be updated, but there was too many logos for me to pick from. Adobe released major updates this month. For August, Adobe has released 8 security updates, which address bugs for the following products: Acrobat, Reader, After Effects, Character Animator, Creative Cloud Desktop App, Experience Manager, Photoshop, Premiere Pro, and Prelude. In total, the 8 patches reportedly address 115 CVEs, and several of the patches for Acrobat and Reader and Photoshop. 76 vulnerabilities were resolved in Acrobat and Reader, all of which were deemed important. The fixes deal with out-of-bounds read-write, command injection, use after free, heap overflow, buffer errors, and more. For Adobe Photoshop, this is for Windows and Mac. So if you're running a multi-OS environment, this is definitely important. They are recipient of a very large security update. This month, 22 critical vulnerabilities in the software have been patched, including heap overflow problems, type confusion flaws, command injection, and out-of-bounds write issues. If exploited, all the vulnerabilities can lead to arbitrary code execution. Big research coming from this. They found all this not they, Adobe didn't. FortiGuard Labs, Trend Micro Zero-Day Initiative, FireEye, Baidu Security Lab, and TopSec Alpha Team have all been thanked for the reports on this, and there are more to come. So I'm expecting next month to be just as big for Adobe. So if you have not patched your Adobe products or turned on the automatic update or use Automox's automated console, please, please, please. Valve is the company that releases out Steam. Steam is the gaming agent or engine that allows us to play games like Half-Life 2 and Wish for Half-Life 3. Valve Software has released an update for the zero-day local privilege escalation security flaw that was recently found in their Steam gaming platform. Security researcher Vasily Kravitz first discovered the flaw in Steam client service, which can allow any user to run arbitrary code with local systems privileges. Valve, unfortunately, was reluctant to issue a patch for this issue at first, but after much controversy, they got called out publicly. A fix has been released. However, this is where it gets a little weird. Security researchers say that the patch is not sufficient. While it does fix the issue publicized by Kravitz, experts say that many other holes within Steam still need to be addressed. So if you are, for some reason, running Steam within your environment, maybe rethink that. Now, if you have not joined us in the past, we're going to introduce something to you for the use within the Automox console. It's called the worklet. And this is what Adam is going to be going through in a quick second. What is a worklet? Worklet is something that we call, that is a customizable script. It's an open, extensible automation architecture that allows IT operations, like you, to create any custom task that they can imagine. These are reusable units of work that can be applied across any supported Windows, Linux, and OS X, and are powered by PowerShell and Bash scripting. If you haven't played around with the worklet capability, or if you haven't seen it updated within the console, I recommend checking it out. If you're interested in seeing the power of this, just in time, I'm going to pass this over to Adam. Adam's going to be doing reg value changes for CVE vulnerabilities. Adam, it's your show. What does that mean?
Thanks, Richard, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. And as Richard was saying, I'm going to talk about what a Automox worklet is. And just to reiterate what Richard was talking about, think of an Automox worklet as an open source feature that allows you to write PowerShell or Bash scripts and then execute those scripts to your devices that have that worklet policy currently assigned to it. So kind of show you how that works. I'm going to show an example of one of these policies, and then we're going to assign that worklet policy to a device and kind of show you how everything works. So what we're looking at right now is a view inside of our Automox console. And if you've ever been inside of our Automox console, you probably see this as the first thing when you log in. Now, what I'm going to do first is show you a device that we're going to be running one of these, or actually assigning one of these worklets to. So if I go to my devices And the device we're going to focus on is this one right here. Now, as you can see that this device is currently compliant. And it's compliant based on this policy that's been assigned to the device. And this policy is essentially a patch all policy, anything native to the OS and any third-party applications that we support. So we've updated this system as much as it can be, and it's currently compliant. And we can tell by the compliancy of the device, and also the OS has a compliant check mark beside it. Now, even though it's fully up to date, we've noticed that there's a KB that's been rolled out that has a critical vulnerability exploit as part of that. And the example we're going to be using is KB 450-03308. And what that is this is the vulnerability that a KB that had a vulnerability released in it around Adobe Flash 11. So even though we're fully up to date, or the device is fully up to date, we're still a victim, or could be a victim of this exploit, because that patch is currently installed on some of my devices, because it is the most current patch that was released. Hence, my device is fully up to date. More than likely that this KB exists on those devices. So the goal of this worklet and the job I'm going to show you what it's going to do is it's going to remove that KB and roll back to the previous version. So this just goes through all your devices. It indicates if it exists, and then it will remove it. I'll kind of show you how that works and how we actually create that worklet. Okay, so here's a worklet we've already created. I'm just going to kind of show you the inner workings of it and how it's all structured together. So it's like any other policy. You set a date, time that you want it executed on. Where I'm really wanting to focus in is what the evaluation code and the remediation code is going to do. So as you take a quick look, looks like the evaluation code is a very simple PowerShell script that's designed to go out and look for if that KB exists on one or multiple devices, depending on how many devices you assign this to. And as you can see, we're creating an alias here for the KB, and then we're actually looking for that KB number. Now, if the evaluation code does discover that that KB exists on the device, that's going to trigger us to exit with a 1. And when we exit our evaluation code with a 1 or a non-zero value, that triggers our remediation code to then kick off and do its thing. If we exit with a 0, that says, hey, this KB does not currently exist on these devices or this device. We need to return with a 0, which means we're not going to do anything. We're going to mark the device as compliant and not run the remediation code. Now, in the case we do have to run the remediation code, so that exists. Another very simple PowerShell script that does that with about 7 or 8 lines of code. As you can see, we take that KB and then we push it to a string, and then we run the start process, and DISM actually removes that package for us, and then it will replace it with the other version, the rollback version. So as you can see, pretty simple how this works. Evaluation is triggered by an exit code, or is triggered by either exit 1 or exit 0. If it exits with a 1, we're going to run that remediation. Okay. So that's kind of how this worklet has been designed and what it's structured to do for us. So now all we need to do is assign it to the group that the device we want it to run on exists in. So by simply doing this and assigning that worklet to it and saving it allows now that to be assigned to that device. So now let's go back to that device now that we have that worklet policy assigned to it. So if we dive back into the device details, all of a sudden we have this new policy assigned to it, and we have a pending update available as a device status for this device. So that means that this device, based on this policy that's been assigned to it, is not compliant, which means that, hey, we found this KB on this device, and we are ready to remediate it whenever the policy actually executes. So when this policy actually executes, what it's going to do, it's going to find that KB, it's going to remove it, which will then roll it back to the previous version and make sure that that exploit in that KB is no longer existent on that device or multiple devices. So you can see pretty easily that as soon as we assign that worklet over, it set it up to a pending update so that we know that based on this policy assignment, there is a KB that needs to be removed that exists on this device. And you can see it just changed that status based on the evaluation code. Now we can run this policy one-off, or we can wait for the schedule to come around and allow it to do its own thing whenever the schedule's ready to remediate the device. Now, if we do run the policy on this device, what it's going to do is going to go out and remove that KB, and then the next time it rescans the device, it's going to show it as compliant, because now when that evaluation code runs, it's not seeing that KB on the device anymore. So that is a really good example of how powerful AutoMox can be in your environment. We see, and this can go across anything. This is just one example that I've used in terms of rolling back a KB. Let's talk about changing any type of registry value. We can do that so easily by doing the same thing. Everything is open source and can be created through a custom workload. So that's exactly what a custom workload can do for us, and hopefully can show some advantages in your environment as well. So Richard, that's all I wanted to show, so I'll just go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open up the Q&A right now. Are there any questions that we can answer for you about AutoMox, AutoMox console? Actually, you know what? Let's try this. We're going to allow you to talk. Go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, we're one of your customers, so there are a couple questions that we have regarding AutoMox. Actually, that kind of ties into the most recent update that was rolled out from Windows. One thing I'm really curious to know about is once we push out, we have a policy, we execute it, but we don't have a really good understanding as to how many endpoints we've reached, and then how many of them are patched, or basically they're not patched. Some sort of reporting, I guess, along the policies that we execute. So that's basically the concern that I have, or question.
Yeah. Hey, this is Adam. Great question. So in terms of knowing which devices have been patched or not patched, rest assured that any device that is in a group that currently has a policy assigned to it is going to run that policy. And you're going to possibly have a lot of devices that are in pending states, some that may be compliant because they are fully up to date already. But that's a good indication of which ones still need to be patched, because really our compliancy is based on the policies that have been assigned to the device itself. So if there's no policy assigned, the device is currently unmanaged. If it is assigned, then it's a managed server and creates a compliancy based on that policy. So really the only way you're gonna be able to see which devices are pending patches or not pending patches is from the actual symbol that's populated on the right side of the devices. And that's all available in the device details page. So you can see it, and you can actually export that page and see which devices are not compliant or are compliant. Now, in terms of knowing which devices are still updates after policies have ran, that's all going to be populated in our reports page under the pre-patch report. So the pre-patch report is going to show you which software on which devices are, or which devices are docked for the next patch iteration and are going to be patched at what time. So that's going to tell you when that patch is actually going to run. Now, in terms of what actually has been applied, we do have a way of sending push email notifications to let you know the installation of a device was successful or an installation had failed. And if it was successful, what actually got applied, and if it failed, what failed and why it failed. So that's another indication, but that's all through push notifications. So those are the only really ways you're going to find out about after policy is ran, what has been patched, what still needs to be patched, and what's up on the docket for the next patch policy cycle.
Were we able to answer your question or address it?
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it.
Awesome. Hey, Joshua, you're doing a really good follow-up on that one. Is there any work being done to include additional reporting? Yes. We are working on a new reporting functionality and structures that are going to give you more information. I will see about including a link to the public roadmap in our follow-up email to make sure that you can see that. A rollout, we're going to be seeing it within by the end of the year. The goal is over the next couple of months. So we'll make sure that have that out there. Hopefully that answers it. How long, hey, Adam, you want to take this? How long does it take for a policy to execute?
Very good question. You know, there is really no way of telling how long a policy is going to take. We literally kick off the policy, and when we trigger a policy based on the schedule you've set, we have now told that device to update itself based on the vendor-provided update repository that's been assigned to it. So example, Windows Updates. So we're telling Windows Updates to go ahead and apply all of its updates whenever that policy schedule is scheduled to run. So as you know, some patches could take a very short amount of time, some could take long periods of time. Feature updates could take a long period of time. And sometimes it could take maybe a day to fully apply all patches or even longer. So we really are dependent on how long it takes the device to apply its patches. And the time frame really depends on how many patches need to be applied and how far back it is on its patching.
Awesome. Hopefully that answers your question. Jerry's asking, where are we with the webhooks for notification use case? Send updates to Microsoft Teams like Automox does for Slack.
Yeah. So we do have Slack integration already for our notifications. So if you do go into the Automox console and go to settings, you'll see a notification section, and that is on a per user basis. So you can only really customize the user that you're currently logged in with. And with that, you'll see a Slack notification button or Slack integration button. You just click that, fill out the necessary information that Slack needs and also what we need, and you'll be able to get your notifications through a Slack channel. As terms of webhooks, we do support webhooks today. I don't know all the functionality that our webhooks include, but we just recently released webhooks maybe a month ago. So I will be sure to follow up with all the information that our webhooks include today and what we're also planning to have included in the future.
Looks like that's it. Hopefully we answered your question on that. As I always say, if you do have any questions following this webinar, you've received an email directly from me, Richard Melick. Feel free to reply to it, asking any questions you have following up. Also, you can reach out to us on social media. You can reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Spiceworks, Instagram. We have it all. Just look for Automox app. On top of that, if you are a user of Automox and you are interested in joining our community, we have launched Automox Live for beta for selected customers right now. If you are interested in joining Automox Live to talk about worklets, talk about security, talk about cyber hygiene, or anything else, it is going to be, once launched, an open, fun, free community for all. Go and reply to me in those emails, richard.melick, M-E-L-I-C-K, @automox.com. I'll make sure to get an invite directly over to you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for the Automox August Patch Tuesday webinar. Adam, thank you so much for giving a great demo.
Got it. It was exciting. I always love doing these and hearing your guys' questions and use cases. So really appreciate the invite, Richard, and hope to do it again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Have a wonderful day.